a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
As some of you may know and some may not, depending on who you are and how informed you are, the Supreme Court has just passed a ruling that says affirmative action is unconstitutional. How you feel about that, baby?
I think I agree. I think I agree.
Right.
So on Thursday,
wrap this topic up.
That's it. That's all we got. I agree. On Thursday, I saw the little thing came up on my phone, and I was like, so what's happening? Because, like, let's be honest, are we really following what's happening? No. Not until it pops up and things have been passed, and then you're like,
no, no, she wasn't ready.
Right? And so I saw it, and then I was like, okay, let me read this, and let me read I downloaded what the Supreme Court submitted and all the verbiage and all that. Then I had read a news article, and then the next day, and then I didn't see anything wrong. I was like, cool.
Oh, well.
This is pretty awesome. That was it. I thought that was the end of that. And then the next day in homeschool groups, I saw it. Then Brandon's like, did you hear? Yeah, I read it yesterday. It was no big deal.
Black people big mad though.
But people were mad. And I was like, well, why are we mad? Because I saw it as
a win.
A win. I didn't see it as anything negative. I didn't see it as discriminating. I see it that they were taking discrimination away and putting forth merit.
If you think about it, it's really racism.
Yeah. That's racism.
Straight up.
The way that we be hollering racism, but that is racism.
Because they are directly attacking a group of people, which is the Asian community. Those are the ones who actually brought this to the Supreme Court's attention because they were being overlooked based off of the color of people's skin. Now, historically, Asians are one of the more intelligent groups of people. And race is not really a thing. Race is really made up because there is only one race, and that's the human race. So we're going to use the word ethnicities. So historically, Asians are one of the smarter ethnicities. They are one of the more hardworking ethnicities, and their family structure is based on merit. Mm-hmm. So they felt like they were being discriminated against because they weren't even getting the opportunities that other people were based on this here affirmative action. They were actually allowing people who weren't really qualified to enter into these schools. And what they found out and what studies show is these people, even though they may have been the head of their class in high school, they still weren't up to par when it came to a prestigious school like Harvard, like an MIT. So when they put these people in there, the failure rates of African-American and Hispanics went down because it's almost like they were allowing people who shouldn't even been there. Mm-hmm. But these studies also show that these same people would have been at the top of their class on the collegiate level if they would have just went to a lesser educated school, mm-hmm. like a HBCU, mm-hmm. for instance, mm-hmm. or a regular university. Mm-hmm. But they're placing these people inside of prestigious, highly educated schools and expecting them to thrive. Mm-hmm. And they found out quickly that was not the case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they couldn't keep up. If you listen to some of Thomas Sowell's stuff, he was saying years ago that studies were showing, statistics were showing that Black women and
Black folk.
yeah, men and women. I can't think of the word. That Black men and women who were in these institutions, they were not, testing well. They were not retaining the information that was coming to them in the classrooms, and they weren't even choosing classes that I think were challenging to them. So if you're not, and that makes me go back to think of everything that we say about the public school and how the public school is kind of failing and what they are teaching. And like, I've watched so much stuff, but I had watched something that was in Detroit, and his daughter had went to the military, but she was not on the math level that she needed to be in the military. And so they had to create this whole remedial course for her because they had never seen anybody come into the military who was that far behind in math.
Wow.
And so, she was Black, and this is in Detroit. So you have to look at
the
also
public school,
but where they're located at, right, what states and everything. So in Texas is probably bad, right? Texas is probably
perhaps
bad. But if you look at the things, the statistics, if you look at like places maybe like New York, places like Detroit, Chicago, it's children who are in high school, are they lowering
the standards?
Yeah. Because that's what they were doing in Detroit. They lowered the standards.
They was probably doing it for that No Child Left Behind stuff.
That's exactly
they want to just
why.
They just want to get you keep them moving, keep it moving.
So if you're lowering something and then you say you're valedictorian because you have a 4.0 and you're going to get it, you fill out your college applications and Harvard looks at it and it's like, oh, well, okay, this is a 4.0. And then it's a criteria of, oh, you're Black too, right? So you meet it.
Do they still do the essay writing?
I
feel like if you have to write an essay, that should be a tall tale sign.
But how many people would get help on it?
This is true.
Today, and then
the AI and everything.
The Chat GPT, right? Let's help me out with this.
Yeah, just switch up a couple words and they won't know it's a robot.
So they were lowering standards. So if you're lowering standards, really, you should not qualify to be in anybody's college.
Straight up. Because this real world is not going to lower the standards for you unless it's affirmative action.
Unless it is affirmative action. That is what affirmative action has done all these years.
It glorifies mediocrity.
And you had showed me the interview with Joy Reid, and she was saying it was affirmative action.
Well, let me just be clear. I got into Harvard only because of affirmative action. I went to a school no one had ever heard of in Denver, Colorado, in a small suburb. I didn't go to Exeter or Andover. I didn't have college test prep. I just happened to be really nerdy and smart and have really good grades and good SAT scores.
Right. The thing with her is she was making the grade. She would have qualified anyway because she was focused. And so then she tried to say, well, Clarence Thomas, the Supreme Court justice who voted to take away affirmative action, was a part of that too. But in my thinking, here's how they benefited from the affirmative action, because they were legit doing well in school.
Absolutely. I don't think that they would, even though they were being looked at, I don't think if they got in there and didn't perform at a certain level, I don't believe that they would have stayed there.
And I think it was like taboo for Black people in that era of time to perform at a less than level if you want to go to Harvard or Yale. You were going to do your best.
My question is, if she thought she was good enough for this type of education, why didn't she actively go at them? Why didn't she apply to them? Because she never said anything about applying to Harvard. She just said, based on affirmative action, they came to her.
Yeah, she said, I got into Harvard only because of affirmative action.
And then she proceeded to say how smart she was. So that's kind of contradictory. It's not just because it's, I got the eyes, but my intelligence kept me there.
And that's the good. So that's what I'm saying. That's how they helped them. But today, How
just
is
letting
it?
they
How
letting
is it?
anybody
I
in.
think they're just letting anybody in.
And that's why they're saying that the graduation rate for Black and Hispanics has plummeted because they're letting people in solely on the color of their skin.
Solely on the color of your skin.
And not the content of their character.
Not the
like my
content,
boy
right.
Martin Luther King say.
And isn't that what he wanted? He
Absolutely.
wanted us. It was about Martin Luther King Jr. in the 1960s was fighting for Black people. Yes, he was. But it was for civil rights, human rights. And you have to look at him. He was an educated man in Georgia who went to college, who became a doctor. It was never an excuse as somebody probably
They won't
did
help me.
And somebody probably did help him, but I think ultimately he knew that it was on him to help
It was on the
himself.
content of his character. If I'm at a MIT or I'm at a Harvard and
You go there to do your best.
Exactly. Just say I'm white. If I see some Black person or Hispanic in there just doing whatever, I'm gonna have a problem too.
Yeah, because you don't.
There are very few opportunities in these schools.
Right.
So for
Why
you
are
to
you
give it to
slacking off?
someone
Why would
that
you
is a
slack
slacker
off? Yeah.
or a who thrives in mediocrity, I would be mad if I was an Asian too, when I've been putting in all this work, doing all the right things, and I'm being overlooked because I'm not Black.
Yeah. So there was a standard to things, and we don't hold up to those
We
standards
don't like
today.
standards.
The Asian community, they do hold up to standards. They are about studying. They are about, working harder and making sure they are obtaining the knowledge that they need to know in order to get into these schools. They leave school and then they go home for their parents to say, okay, you need to study more.
Straight up.
Because practice makes
Repetition.
better. Repetition definitely makes better.
But yeah, there are options for people who don't fit the criteria. I don't think you should place yourself in a position that you're not prepared for mentally to succeed in.
We got to prepare our children. We're not preparing them. And I think it's, sometimes we don't prepare them because we don't know how. We don't prepare them because we've never been in that position. We have to prepare our children, get their study habits up, teach them that not to want things because of the color of their skin or because they deserve things. You don't deserve nothing because of the color of your skin, okay? We need to work hard just like everybody else, and we need to show. I don't even think we need to show that we belong. We just need to show up for ourselves, and that will show that we belong.
Absolutely.
It's not about showing out or showing off or any of that. It's, are you doing the work to know that, hey, I'm an American, I belong here. I don't care what the heck you say. I'm doing what I have to do. And that's the mentality that we all need to take.
Let your work ethic, let your intelligence speak for itself.
You
won't have to say much.
You deserve this because you put the work in. Not because somebody handed it to you or because somebody gave you a step up or nepotism or none of that mess. But because, hey, I worked hard for this. I studied. So I know I deserve to be in this room. And that's how if you go back to the 60s, that's how a lot of Black civil rights people were. I did the work. I belong here.
Yeah.
MLK knew he belonged in them rooms with JFK and all, like the presidents, and signing off the civil rights
Because he
act.
sure couldn't get in there and lack the intelligence, because that was going to speak for itself. They're going to be like, bro, why are you here?
Yeah.
How did you get here?
Absolutely. You have to think about Malcolm X going and traveling and having these intellectual conversations. Yeah. If you go on YouTube and just look up some of Malcolm X's conversations that they would have while sitting, around the table that they were having with these white men. James Baldwin,
in a lot of cases, they were talking over their heads.
Man. Oh my gosh. Like, where is that intelligence speaking from? We get caught up in,
you sound white.
Oh my gosh. What does that mean?
I seen a commercial where Gabrielle Union was talking proper.
About with Candace Owens?
Yes. And he said, where'd that voice come from? You sound like Candace Owens.
And I was like, I didn't know if that was like trying to be an insult
I think
or
it
not.
was. But she clearly said, I don't take that as offense.
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
Because ghetto is not Black culture. It shouldn't be Black culture.
It's not.
Ebonics shouldn't be Black culture.
It's
not being able to enunciate or pronounce shouldn't be Black culture.
It's integrity. It's about integrity. And I don't think we should be mad about the ruling of the affirmative action. I think we should embrace it. And that just means, hey, let me work. Let me work. And like I said, not to show people, but just let me work. Let me get this
Show
done.
myself.
Let me show myself
that I'm worthy of being in these spaces.
And so that's a way for us to enhance the Black community. We want to enhance it so bad, and we just out here playing victim. Shaking our behinds and listening to stuff and all this other stuff.
Lord have mercy.
Let's get into it.
How can you respect that?
Let's get into it. Let's work and stop trying to live this dream, and let's get educated.
We got to do better as Black people, Hispanic people, and
people, period.
That too.
People, period. Let's stop this discrimination mess. Let's stop. There's division. And we continue to be divided because we're not reading, because we want to take whatever they say on the news and not literally read the stuff.
So they fill your head up with all kind of nonsense.
Because
you just run with it.
And because have you read I can't even think of what it's called. Have you read it? Have you read the what the Supreme Court said?
You're just taking people's word for it.
I read that, and that's what I was like,
it confused me why people mad.
I didn't know, because I was like, did they read it? Or were they just going off of headlines? They just
going off of headlines, TV, news people who have incentive to tell you a certain thing. Got to do better.
Let's read it for ourselves.
I challenge you to do better.
I triple dog dare you.